I take us in a different direction? I wanted to ask about I don't know if you guys saw it or not. I quote tweeted it because a good buddy of mine from Facebook that I worked with for years tweeted a thing last week about here's what they've seen working now for large Facebook advertisers, and went off on a thread. And then it kind of I thought it was great. But there were people that jumped in, like Barry, who said the hard part about Facebook people then sharing data and content around how to structure ads is that people then take it as gospel, and it doesn't necessarily always apply. Now, I'm of the belief that I'd love to see more Facebook people tweet. When I was working with this guy, his name's Yoni Levy, I was always like, man, you should tweet your hot takes. And he was like, I don't know about that. And I was like, just tweet it. People will follow you. And he tweeted this thing. And I think it has 45 retweets and 204 likes. And he wrote a whole thread about here's how you can kind of do this. But what are your takes on, because Barry and I ended up having a DM conversation about it where he was like, it gets scary because now I know this guy personally and worked with him for 2 years. So I know that he knows what he's talking about. But when you see stuff like that, do you trust it? Do you think it's a bad idea? Daniel's got hot takes. Go.
Sorry. My thing on it is this is first of all, Facebook are incentivized for you to spend more on their platform. So right, they're not going to put out information on anything that they don't think is going to get people to spend more. And there's also, if you set your campaign strategies, anything else up under purely data-driven algorithmic understanding of, well, this is the way to maximize the machine learning aspect of Facebook based on how it's all meant to work, right? So you can't really dispute that in one way, but there's people winning not doing those things, right? So
yes.
if Facebook draw out a playbook of only do this, only do this, only do this, because if you do these things, that's maximizing how we've built our machines to perform the best. Cool. And I think there's a lot you can take from that. But I think there's somebody not doing those things and winning. And I think if you only blindly ever do the things that come out of Facebook, then you don't know. I know Charlie, I actually saw a thread from Charlie yesterday about CBO and ABO.
And, no, we can't go down this road again.
So much to Charlie's dislike, I would say that one of our advertisers, maybe even more, I'd have to check with Kyle, is on ABO and absolutely crushing it. Now, if we only did things the way maybe Facebook are telling us to, because CBO is best because it does this, then would it perform better? Well, it didn't. So we switched it over and we're using ABO and do you see what I mean? So I know that gets confusing because people ask questions of, well, what's the best way to set things up? And I think there's an initial starting ground, which I would start with the Facebook template to a large degree, because it's there to guide how to maximize the machine, right? That is Facebook and the algorithm. I think as you get more knowledge and more experience and you work on bigger projects and bigger brands, there's going to be an element of, well, you have the freedom and opportunity to test other things. If those things work, then if it goes slightly against what the theoretical best practices are, then I don't think that's a bad thing. That's my take.
No, I think it's more of an art form than, it sounds so douchey and self-serving maybe, that it is more of an art form and how you want to work and what actually works. Right? Some people they like the ABO side. I like the CBO side, but I don't care. I don't hate Dylan because he runs ABO. I hate him for other things. Sorry, it was just right there for me.
It was a good alley.
Like I think that that's the play, right? And I get into arguments about it all the time, but I get into arguments where it's not me running the account, right? So if I come in and take over and it's all ABO, my first instinct is like, well, I'll set this up in CBO, but maybe that shits the bed and I turn everything ABO back on. I just haven't had that experience yet, so that's why I'm like, yeah. But I'm sure that at some point I'll hit something where I'll be like, I gotta test ABO.
Yeah, I think again, not to kind of repeat the point, and I know Charlie's going to want to talk on it, but it's like,
yeah,
I think, you know, and what I've done always and we've done is, I guess, like you have your initial playbook of where you want things to start from, right? And I think that leverages a lot of what we know to be true about maximizing the machine that is Facebook, right? Like we want to get the most out of the algorithm. And so we want to do things, and at least initially, that give us that best chance. But if it's not working, then you've got to have a plan A, a plan B, a plan C. You've got to have, yes, outside of creative variables and stuff, which is obviously super important, but like, you know, I think at least having an established base, right? But then there's going to be paths that take you to different directions. And that's the case with this brand where we're running ABO. It's massively helped us scale. And probably part of that is nuance to the way we have that brand set up with product specific, multi-SKU ABO campaigns that we can check against inventory levels and know how to scale up individual ad sets and things. Do you see what I mean? So again, there's like a lot of variables around it.
For sure. Okay, but wait, before Charlie goes off on CBO, Facebook reps, should they tweet more stuff that they see in the market overall? Or should they leave it to the rest of us to just tweet our hot takes about CBO and ABO?
I think we should let Dylan, a former Facebook rep, answer this question.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So I'm going to be real right now. So if they were to like tweet what they think is like accurate, I mean, that'd be complete bullshit if I'm being honest with you. I mean, with what we were trained, it was best practices, but let's be real. How many times do best practices actually work at the end of the day? And I mean, we can see what's in accounts, but it doesn't mean we know what plan B or C is. And I mean, the tools they have are pretty freaking cool because they can go into any single ad account they want to say, hey, I wonder how this brand structures. I see their ads all the time. So, I mean, they can go above and beyond to kind of learn it for themselves, but there's literally 1% who actually know what the fuck they're doing. So, I mean, global account manager, I got a killer one. And if she were to tweet some stuff, that would be kind of cool. But I mean, the majority of them are just not the greatest.
Yeah, that's what, like, because I've worked with this guy, I'm like, oh, he knows what he's talking about. And he does like add in all of the things that you would expect Meta employee to do, like do your own independent testing and here's some things. And then people went back at him and he was like, well, this is what conventional wisdom says. So it's not over the top. Charlie, I just flipped it to you on Slack just in case you want to put this tweet somewhere. Because like I would love to hear from more Facebook reps as long as it's I don't want them to get in trouble. Because maybe Zuckerberg just drops the hammer, right? Like I feel like you have to be like at a VP level to be tweeting about anything.
I did have to sign an NDA with mine, like both of them. And like, so I mean, they have told me some things, and I'm just like, I mean, certain things that we'll keep to ourselves, but it's definitely interesting. I don't want to, risk losing them essentially. So I mean, I'm definitely going to keep some things to my fucking self. Yeah.
Yes, like there was lots. I had tons of conversations where it was very NDA'd. But the stuff that they see and the reports that they get internally or that are then reflected in external case studies, like highlighting that and being able to tweet about it, I dig.
Yeah, well, I'll say this. I'll say this. 3 things. First off, as far as reps go, not all reps are created equal. There's a very different person that's the 24-year-old salesperson versus the global, like the GSM on a disruptor account.
Yes.
Very different exposure. There's also a big difference between somebody that works in the engineering or the measurement team and somebody that's on the product team. Very different exposure. And I know some of the folks on the measurement team that'll swear up and down X, Y, and Z, and I get it. You're a scientist looking at data, but you never are able to take what's in the box out into the real world for business development. And there's a big gap. So I would love to see more of them talk, but I also think that there's a big understanding. Like I see a lot of times Facebook employees will talk, and then everybody, if it mirrors what they have to say, they'll champion it till the cows come home. Mm-hmm. And if it doesn't, then they're like, well, fuck a rep. They don't know what they're talking about. And the honest truth is, it's one of those things where you get to pick and choose the conversation you would like to, like your echo chamber. Which one do you want to support, right? So my second point to that is, when it comes to reps and it comes to like, should you trust them and like, what should you be doing? I think that ultimately, and this goes back to more what Dan was saying, like, I think there is best practice for 80% of the people, 80% of the time. That's my big general rule. There's an overarching thing that in general, if you do X, Y, and Z, you're going to be good. And I think there's some distrust from employees and there's some, advertisers. But like, for instance, this guy, Daniel, who like came at me because they said ads make their own lookalike audiences, which is objectively true, although it's an analogy, so the people that don't understand what we're talking about can like get there. He also said, well, Facebook ultimately just wants to take your money. And that basically tells me like, okay, cool. So I'm not going to trust anything that you have to say other than that, because basically just negated the value of any position you have, because yes, Facebook wants to take your money, but there's not like a piece of code that says, oh shoot, Daniel's got an extra $500 on his credit limit today. We're going to spike like that. The level of self-importance that it requires for you to think that Facebook is coming after you personally to like come after your bank account is fucking ridiculous. So then it ultimately comes down to my third point. ABO and CBO, my ultimate thing is do what works best for you. The number one strategy is what you can commit to. I've seen a lot of people take one way or the other. It's how you think, how you problem solve, what your objectives are. But generally speaking, a lot of the people that I see champion ABO say, well, CBO didn't work for me, but they didn't come from a place where they implemented CBO the way it should be done. And they didn't necessarily follow, like, they're not validating the elements of all of their ads, right? They're not like validating for estimated action rate, the headlines, the creative, the primary text. They're not running dynamic creative testing at scale, at broad to measure for incrementality to the reach of the audiences. They're not trying to stabilize that thing and then improve upon it. They're saying, well, this ad that I tested against an interest group 3 years ago that's got great, or like 3 months ago, I ran it against broad with CBO, and oh, by the way, it spent more money at broad than it did at lookalike. Well, broad should spend more than lookalike. Lookalike and cost cap and all that stuff, that's incremental, right? That's data-based audiences. So it's designed to not be the lion's share of the spend, but the thing that helps you reduce your average cost. And then ultimately, like what I find that marching order, that mentality is, how do I make the system look as good as I can with the tools that I have? And I get that. My overarching thinking, though, is most of the people that I know that have fully embraced CBO that are going, like, it's a long game versus a short game. And I think that's the bigger thing. I want, ultimately, Facebook is a scientific method testing device. I want a control element where I can predict the outcome, and then I want to improve it. What that means is I need as few moving parts so I have the highest likelihood of getting a consistent result, and then I improve it. And for me, that means I have a control campaign made up of some control audiences with CBO running, because I know, hey, Facebook, no matter what you're going to do, I know what I can project roughly what the outcome is going to be. And then I work to develop ads that are going to find me incrementality and audience reach, or they're going to find me incrementality and efficiency. And I'm just going to cycle and repeat to continue to either reduce my CPA or maintain it while I'm pushing volume. And for me, that means that I'm no longer going to play the game of investment by audience, because that is micromanaging something that becomes obsolete in the end game. So, like, I think there's very different things of maximize performance versus build brand. And there's not necessarily one is right or wrong, It's just I'm generally working with brands that are looking at the next 6 months, next 3 years as their objective. And that for me means I need the simplest, most stable account because Facebook is feeding into a larger ecosystem that we're measuring across like, you know, a blended CPA. And I can't adjust things up or down. And like the biggest complaint is people say, well, I can't triple my spend. And my thing is like, do I want to triple spend? Or do I want that tripled spend to be my normal in 3 months? Because for instance, Dylan was talking about like running the reach campaign against all that smaller audience. Well, that's great. You're going to get great results now. But it's also going to tank your account's estimated action rate. And you're likely to see your prospecting suffer for the next couple of weeks because you're forcing impressions on people who don't want to see it. So there's a halo effect of reduced performance efficiency that now you're creating problems you're not going to have to micromanage to solve. And I'm just not even going to play the game. And so it's a different style, right? And so that's where I manage Facebook in 90 minutes, 2 hours max a week. And I'm trying to plan for 3 months in advance. But I might miss out on today's revenue where Dylan is going to maximize the opportunity right in front of him. And I'm not playing the hand-to-hand combat game. And I might definitely miss out on opportunity for that. But it's a different style of management. I don't know. That's my
I literally just like have a note to myself like do not talk about CBO versus ABO today because I feel like we do it every time.
My bad.
And then no, it's all right, man. That's every time somebody comes in though, they're like, we should talk about this because like Charlie's out there on Twitter being like, you're stupid if you run ABO.
Like, you're stupid if you run it. I said ABO is stupid and obsolete.
Yes.
Because of the liability to long-term brand growth. And it requires
I know we don't need to cover any more of it. What's another topic?